Nancy and I had a conversation about the review and selection. I think we'll have an opportunity to add people if we want to for the review of Pierce Island. So we can talk about that a little bit later. So that'd be another way to maybe somebody who doesn't want a lifetime commitment, but who would want to serve on a task. Though Kate, do you expect that we'll have at least one appointee by the end of the calendar year?
I hope so. I had suggested to the mayor that there were 2 applications and there were 2 openings, and that it would be appropriate to appoint people because we're short, the committee's short. So I don't know what his decision will be.
Okay. Some updates. One I forgot to put on there, feels like it happened a long time ago, but it really was at the beginning of November. I did go to the CIP meeting and they did agree to put in $25,000 a year into a fund that we can use for sculpture. Now that still has to go through the process of being approved finally by the council, but typically the CIP recommendations are taken, and the 3 counselors on that committee were all very enthusiastic about it. People especially like the idea that we have this money available in case a match comes along. So it goes into the Public Art Trust Fund and it'll just build up every year. If we use it, if we don't use it, it'll build up. And I think there'll be approval near the end of January. Is that right, Kate? The council gets it near the end of January.
Near the end of, I think our first meeting is early February. I may be wrong about this, because we didn't have the supplemental meetings yet in the calendar.
Okay.
But I think it's early February that we'll finally get it.
But that's the first hurdle. And I think it was one of only 2 that were accepted that night. So it's not like they're dealing with a lot of citizen money requests that they have approved at this level. We probably should have asked for more, right? I also had the chance, and Sean and I met with the chair of the HDC, John Wyckoff, along with Peter Britz. Peter thought it was best to meet with John first to talk him through the process and our memo before bringing it to the full HDC, which we did. And I think John ended up being pretty enthusiastic about the idea. He could see the real value of us being able to do the planning board flagging something that would have public art in it, planning department rather, flagging something that would have public art in it. It would come to us, we would review and give our recommendations, suggestions in a memo form to the HDC. So I think we're in business with that.
Wow.
So that's good.
Congratulations.
Yeah.
That's big.
That's good. I think that's good. And the memo about the love locks was presented to the council. You might have seen the article in the newspaper about it. Council had a few questions. I think they seemed more interested in, would we be, if there was money, would we be up for helping to identify some process, some material, some approach that would allow love locks in a place that would, be specifically for them. And there were a couple questions to that effect. So I think there's interest in that. Kate, any more discussion on that?
No, I think that's that's very accurate as to where the council is. And I would say that the city doesn't have any immediate plans for removal of the fence, but it is in the works. So
Yeah.
because they're changing the fence altogether. So it'll be a different type of fence.
Now, I'm not aware of any public feedback on that. Has anybody heard anything about that? Public feedback on it?
Public feedback on our memo or
Yes.
on,
Well, on the article.
no, I have not. No, good point.
I mean, that's good news.
I think so. I mean, the fact that
I was too, and I
Yeah.
just was
Yeah.
I didn't hear anything, see anything.
Yeah, good point.
Did
I
anyone
mean-
see the handwritten, like, art paper that was on the Lovelocks at one point this summer?
No, what was it then?
It said that the city was gonna take down the Lovelocks. It was very aggressive, and sign here if you want to save the Lovelocks.
Oh, you saw something like.
Well,
Oh, yeah.
presumably a lot of people signed a petition, but I mean, those things,
Yeah.
you know, how they go. But no, you're right, Jen. I'm surprised that there wasn't any questioning about it. I mean, I think while the headline always, you know, is exciting, the article itself pretty well described the, you know, what we wrote and the tone. And I talked to Ernie Greenslade last night. The sculpture Endeavor has made it through the Panama Canal.
Oh,
Wow.
Wow.
Being shipped from China.
Wow.
So it is on its way to New York. So I don't think we're gonna see it as soon as we'd hoped. And I wonder if the weather may then prevent, you know, winter weather may prevent putting it up right now. But anyway, they were very pleased to hear that.
We're out of hurricane season though.
True, that's true. Good point. And I had a question about the final criteria. Did Ellen ever contact Jen and Mara? Ellen said she had some tweaks she wanted to make to the very final criteria.
I don't.
I
remember
didn't hear.
getting it.
No,
Okay, so maybe we are final. I hope so.
I hope so.
Yeah. I mean, I think we're ready for it.
But when I was reading today's minutes, I mean, this is inexcusable, but I couldn't remember if a copy of the final bid was distributed to everybody.
It
With
was
the final
to Sean, and I'm pretty sure he
that we
emailed it
gave
to
to
us, I think,
Sean.
Yeah,
shortly after our last
Yeah,
meeting.
that's what I
Yeah.
thought.
Yeah. Pretty sure.
But was it sent out?
I think it was, we had a big,
Yeah.
I can look, actually, I've got my computer right here. I'll
I'm
take a look.
pretty sure it was, and I think that's what prompted Ellen to say, oh, I think I
there's a
might have a few
tweak.
more changes, yeah.
Okay.
But
right.
she might, I had encouraged her to talk to the two of you if she thought anything needed to be changed, and if she hasn't,
Mhm.
probably we're good.
Okay, good.
All right, statues for equality. Sean, do you wanna talk about that?
Well, I shared a handout. Does everyone
Yeah.
have one?
Yep, we got them. I just wanted, on October 30th.
We got it on the 30th.
Yeah.
Oh, good. So then we did it straight away and it
Yes.
was that. Okay.
So this request came in to the mayor's office and promptly made itself to the city manager's office and promptly made itself to my desk. But I don't know, I guess I didn't go back and look at our ordinance in terms of this. It's not necessarily a donation, right? It's more of, they're looking
They're looking to have us commission.
Yeah.
Yeah,
commission, right?
Yeah.
So, but that's pretty standard operating
Yeah.
procedure for a group like this, right?
and I think because we are a public committee, we're sort of obligated to, as correspondence like this comes in, especially when it goes through the mayor's office, we're obligated to, we don't have to do anything with it, but we should at least discuss it, consider it, and probably place on file. I don't know if anybody had any thoughts about it.
Well, I think you all are seeing it for the first time.
Yeah. it was
So what
just-
they're intending to do here, it's a good goal. They're trying to make sure that there are more public statues of women, trying to with a goal of sort of 50-50, and in an enterprising way saying, and we can create them for you. And if you look to see, they're realistic, fairly traditional approaches to monumental sculpture, and they have a price. They put a price on body parts here, so you can have a full, a larger than life, a life size, or a partial. So I think it's kind of an enterprising idea. And to Sean's point about whether something like this would fit within our criteria, I think it would be an interesting discussion. And I think it probably would, because I think they're offering to do an original piece of artwork. So. Yeah,
And I was just gonna say, this is the type of thing that if we had a pot of money and somebody said, hey, we'll match this, and then we could move forward, that would be a way that we would engage a program like this. If in
We
the
could.
future.
right.
For example, in the permitting process, when developers want to do something.
Oh,
they
good
need to
idea.
Pony up a little bit for the public art fund, just saying.
Oh, just separate from any developer, any private, okay?
But if there was a private developer who wanted to commemorate an individual, this would be another way to
Yep.
say, oh, we have a group who could do that. Laura?
No, I just am thinking, or working at it from the other end, if there was a particular group who felt, gee, here is this woman who's done a lot for this town. Wouldn't it be nice to have her bust or some other?
So let me
Portion.
tell you about History Through Art, which is under the umbrella of the Friends of Ruth Blay that did the mural of Ruth Blay. That is a organization that had earmarked somewhere between 18 and 22 women, starting from the Abenaki and going all the way up to Carrie Foley, Eileen Foley.
I mean,
And Ruth Blay was the first mural. There is a mural about to go up of Sarah Jewett at the Liars Bench. It's going to be imminent, probably before the new year. There will be a mural of Ona Judge at the Black Heritage Trail building, probably starting next year. And there is a mural of Rose Fiandaca. I don't know if I'm saying her name appropriately. In the North End, all from historian and writer Laura Pope has put this list together, and the History Through Art logo will be on all of them, so the community can see. And these are all private, most of them, with the exception of Ruth Blay. No, that was too privately funded on private buildings, but
property.
in the public view. So we're always looking for people. We have the whole list, we've only got 3 or 4, we're always looking for people that might want to do a mural or a sculpture under the History Through Art. And we've got the ladies and we've got their information.
Mm.
So we actually have that. We actually have a group dedicated to that, but no funding.
mhm.
So just wanted to make sure everybody knew about that.
I don't know the quality, but I would also say the price is very reasonable, I think, for creating original work in bronze, particularly when they're co-funding. So it is something for us to keep in mind.
Not having read all of this, are they looking to partner particular municipalities, or they'll partner with anyone? They'll partner.
I think they will partner with anyone, but the idea is public space, to be in
space,
a
but it
public
could, as you
space. Yeah,
someone said earlier, it could be a private
it could be.
developer who wanted to.
So-
Someone like Eileen Foley you mentioned, as far as funding is concerned, a family might be interested in getting engaged or starting a fundraising program too, that maybe, I don't know if we would partner with or could, or just direct them, but
Possibilities.
So if we want people to know about this, not that everybody shouldn't be watching our meetings on YouTube, but if they don't happen to watch our meetings, what are some ways we can let the community know about this opportunity?
The one thing I would
If we want to do that.
Yeah,
the one thing I would just not caution, but the one thing I would suggest, and I'll happily do it, is do a little bit more research. Where are they? Have they done anything? Do we have any, these look good, but are there any other better
yeah,
pictures so that we
would wanna
know?
do some of that, I think.
So
Look
I'd be
at some
glad to do that
references.
before the next meeting and do a little bit more research and
That'd
bring
be
it with
great.
me. And that way, but to your point, I think then we have to get the message out. But
Yeah.
I'd love to have a little more research before we say, oh, this is a great idea, because I don't First time I've looked at this, it's like, oh, this is interesting, but I need more information.
Yeah, and I think this is exactly why it went to the mayor, to the city manager,
Uh-huh.
to me, to you all.
Yeah.
To get it into the hands of the folks who know what they're doing with these types of requests.
But if that's okay with everybody, I mean, I certainly don't mind doing
Yeah,
some
I
investigation.
think that would be really useful.
I have a particular question about who fabricates the sculptures,
Yeah.
and who designs them. Are they made by women too? Like, are they
Good
women
question.
artists?
I mean, I'm assuming that there's a good old website on here that I can do some.
I'm
serious
on
research.
it.
Yeah,
I'm
and
on it.
I'd also be curious as to who else
That's a good point,
does
though.
this. I mean, if you want,
Yeah.
want to work on it together.
Well,
Yes.
and certainly they are people to whom we could send our solicitations because
Mhm,
they
mhm.
probably do things beyond, the one approach themselves. But I like the idea of us maybe beginning to inventory some of
Too
these
late.
things for all the reasons that you talked about, to recommend to private developers, to come up with ideas, etc.
Right.
I don't think we want to be in a position of quote endorsing, but more providing resource information.
But that's why I think we need to do a little more research ourselves, because if we are actually just providing as a resource to them, I just want to make sure they're vetted.
It's legit. Yeah.
Right, I agree with you completely. That was what
Yeah.
I was thinking. That was the,
I'll put the link to their website in the
Yeah.
minutes.
but I guess I just have to comment that it shows how, right? It's a great object lesson of how a committee like this was needed. And it's really good that we spoke to the HDC and they know that we're here because
Well, and it also, I think we'll probably be getting many more things of this type now that we're a committee. I mean, who knows how they figured out to send to us.
Yeah, I think they reach out to municipalities and
Yeah.
maybe they have a list of. Portsmouth was on that list. We're on a lot of lists
Yeah.
regarding how wonderful we are. So
So good. Nancy, you're talking about the history of art. It might be nice to have a short presentation at some point, especially with who are the women on the list, so that we all are more
Let's
familiar
put
with
it on
that.
an agenda.
Let's do that. Oh, that would be fun.
Is there a
I
website?
just want to remind you, I will be virtual starting in January. So, I mean, I can do it virtually, but not
I don't
in
hate you
flesh.
too much.
But I could send someone from the committee to do it too.
Or a combination.
Yeah.
A hybrid. Anything else before we move into talking about the Pierce Island?
We skipped agenda number 3, resignation of Paul Burke and co-chair candidates.
You're right. We should
Unfunded.
accept Paul's resignation with regret. So let's do a resolution to that effect, Maura.
I resolved to accept it.
And a second,
I'll second it.
all in favor? And I haven't heard anybody say they're interested in being co-chair. I don't know if anybody has thought about that.
You're doing
can-
such a great job.
Yeah.
As long as people keep volunteering to do tasks, Jim, like.
I'd be happy. You can just throw those little things
just
right in
keep
my
doing
way.
those tasks. Okay, Pierce Island, we should explain to Beth and Jen first how we came to figure out a site. Because I doubt I certainly did not think going onto the island that we would all agree on a site. And I don't know if the easiest way, it's kind of,
it's not quite on.
it's not quite on this map.
Sure.
You see where the pool is, and you see the trails to the left of the pool. And you see the little, like, circle trail. It's right outside that circle trail. Toward the pool.
Near the
It's a
volleyball.
rocky ledging,
To the,
So
Right
like
of the volleyball?
here?
If you're facing the pool.
kind of like right here,
Right here?
yeah,
right here, sort of.
Right there, the little hill.
Yeah.
it's a little,
Over
It's
here
a-
is
it-
where we're
but-
talking.
But we're on the. we're
Oh,
talking
yeah, yeah,
about
yeah.
a
That's
flat
right, yeah, right
place.
about here.
Got it.
They're doing some sort of construction
It's,
there. right?
there's
Yes,
a
they
like a
are.
little nolly
Absolutely.
led.
There's
Do you know
a,
what that is? Okay. me too.
okay.
I walk out.
Let's
there
see what's
every
there,
day,
yeah.
right?
It was really kind of, I mean, in terms of the process, it was just really interesting how everybody kind of walked onto it and said, oh,
Well, there's a lot of conversation about access
Access.
and then it get into visibility
Yeah.
and there's a lot of trees there. And then it turned into being near the bridge from the parking lot.
And near the playground.
Near the
Yeah,
playground.
it's kind of, it really is a central, wherever you are, whatever you're doing,
Hmm.
it's
See it.
kind of there.
Accessibility. Bob brought up accessibility early in the conversation. I think that really was meaningful to all of us because the gravel trails there, you could come on a wheelchair and they're very close to the parking lot. You could see it from the parking lot quite well. And so the accessibility, especially as we started to think about the other trails in the island, which are not accessible.
And aren't planned to be, right, according
aren't
to,
planned to
according
be.
to Peter Rice.
Yeah.
So that would really limit folks.
And at first we were kind of interested in the part where the pine trees used to be. Oaks have been planted there and people also realized, well, in 10 years, those trees will start to obscure what's there. So that's why we moved back a little bit. But you get, at least 180-degree vista of the water from there. And then many people will be able to see it from 360 degrees. So it started to feel really right to everybody.
it did.
It just felt like a nice place too. When we moved to the other places, it didn't feel as
Right.
like, it just felt like a good spot. I don't know how to
Yeah.
describe it.
I have a question. Have we agreed on one piece or was it more like a art
Well,
walk kind of?
This was our other thought. Once we were out there, the scale of everything around us made us think this has to be something of some scale. Now, that doesn't mean it couldn't have multiple like sections to it or something, but that if we were scattering things around, they would get lost. And so I think that was also for me a revelation. It's like, oh my God, this is not like putting it even on Bohanko Park where the scale is so contained.
But we didn't actually, I don't think that we discussed one or several.
You could have
per
several
se.
in that area.
Right,
Yeah.
like this is the first and then maybe, or put in
Well, for
several
sure.
with them, yeah. But I really felt that, I mean, I have to say that I thought of a sculptor whose work I know that's very, I mean, obviously, that's not what we're going with, but but just taking that idea, if it were an interactive sculpture, the fact that it's near the playground, that it's where people are walking through, I mean, you could grab, not just adults, but also kids to interact with it, which I think is a really, I think that it serves an educational purpose. It's really good for little kids to know that there's sculpture that out there that
It is ledge, and we asked Peter
Mm.
Rice about that, and he actually said it's easier to drill and attach something to ledge. It occurred to me today, I don't know quite how far it was to the water, and I emailed Peter, I haven't heard an answer yet, because different kinds of requirements come in when you are near a waterway, and it's not city, it's state permitting when you're within 200 feet, as well as if we alter terrain, because we're not saying it has to be a sculpture, we're saying public art, so it could be some change of the terrain, and those are state permits. So I did email Peter just so we are aware of what we're getting into, because state permitting is a nightmare. It takes forever. I'm hopeful that we're not altering anything that would require that, but I thought that's something we better clear.
I guess as we were walking, I was a little wary about, we kept talking about the sculpture, a sculpture. These, and we're not limited to sculpture, and we shouldn't be, in anything we write or think about, or even how we start to conceive things.
That's
I think it's really important that we stay as open as possible, unless we decide that we're asking for a sculpture, like
Yeah.
Wilhenko Park, they asked for a sculpture.
Right.
And we could do that, but our charge here is a little broader, and if we want to narrow it, then I guess we should discuss that too.
So we should refer to it as a public art work. or
Art.
works. Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, it is tempting to use.
I thought it was interesting. Chris was talking about, well, it could even be decoration on the bridge going over to Pierce Island. And it was interesting to me when you mentioned that, because the mayor has raised that too. You
Yeah.
could, make the bridge prettier and have like some kind of artwork on the bridge, so, and it's.
But I
alwa-
did learn that bridge is in the 10-year plan.
Oh,
and
yes.
So will be replaced.
It
So
will be replaced. And then, and it's also been raised that you could do a fountain type, you could do
Yeah.
a fountain that doubled as a children's splash pad or a dog splash pad, or, because you're there where people
And
walk
it
through.
did
dogs.
strike me the other day, Chris, when you were saying, think about the people who use the island. So the dog walkers, the
dog
children,
walkers.
the people going to the swimming pool, the recreation kayaks and
Mhm.
boaters. So
But if you didn't do the big bridge to the island, at least the walk
There
bridge
is
that
the
goes
walk
from the
bridge.
parkway, from the parking lot
yes,
to that space could be more than more a part of it as a kind of
you could,
transitional space.
you could do something on the ground that leads to it.
Mhm.
Yeah.
So if we're going to define a site, we might just, maybe it centers around this area we're talking about, but
But
broadly defined.
But broadly defined, yeah, it's not like right here, but we'll have to find a way, we'll have to do on a map, but just a good way to like outline that, but it was the quickest decision, I think, I could ever imagine, that people were all just feeling this is right.
Well, we started at the parking. And it almost, my observation was like, we were forced that way because of access,
Right,
not going up towards the wastewater treatment plant. So
right,
it really did
narrow.
speed the process of,
Yeah.
here we are, here's the water and here's the trees.
Yeah.
So,
And because it is public and percent for art, the accessibility, I think, is really a driving force here. And I think we'll want to bring that up as we, convey to artists what we're looking for.
I'm sorry I couldn't be there. I had to work, but did you guys look at the spot like right near the commercial fishing pier? That's also quite flat. I think there's a flagpole there. There's a bit of art on the other side of the driveway. I don't know if that was included
We didn't walk over there, Beth.
here.
No.
So it's right
We did not.
before you get to the parking lot.
It's like the first thing as you're coming.
Yeah,
into
right to the left.
yeah.
There's quite a bit of space there.
I wonder how much of that, I mean, the pier is state
Yeah, it might not be
controlled.
available.
I don't
state
know.
control.
I know that Peter Rice had mentioned when we were out there, because we're talking about this artist that makes a sculpture out of old lobster rope,
Yeah,
and how it would be nice, you could put something like that near the fishing pier as a tribute to the commercial fishing industry in the city, and he mentioned that there's a space there.
Okay.
Okay.
So
maybe
so
that's
apparently,
it.
yeah, he knows that there is a space there that's
On this side, when you,
on
on the
on
island
this side of
side.
the parking, that first parking lot,
Right.
so.
Because
So-
I noticed there was a small stone sculpture on the other side of that driveway to the fishermen, fishing people lost.
Mhm.
But it looked like there was a big space in the middle.
so these are all interesting ideas, because with the money that we will have in the trust fund, I think a percent for art, because of the public nature of it, I think needs to be a competition. Other things may or may not need to be competitions. If we have dollars that we accumulate in the fund, we could commission something for a space and even select an artist, where the percent for art, I think, just because it is coming off of taxpayer money essentially that was given to them. We need to be more, go through more of a public process for it. But that kind of brings us to themes, and before we talk about specific themes, Nancy, talk about your discussion with Monty, because we will want to have public input on themes, and we were brainstorming a little of what's our best, quickest way to get some of that public input.
Yeah, I don't know if any of you have signed up for Flash Vote.
Yes.
Yeah.
But I reached out to Monty and I asked him if that would be an option for this committee to run some themes by the community and have them weigh in and or provide us with their own themes.
Right.
And he said they have a 6 survey contract and he doesn't have anything lined up for numbers 5 or 6. And that although he didn't make any promises, he said I could float it and if, let him know if we like the idea. Personally, if we had had Flash Vote available for the parking garage, I would have absolutely used it. I would have used it after the initial information session and education meeting we had with the community to let them know, like, here's the background of this area, here's all the ways to think about it, what does this mean to you, and that sort of laid the groundwork, and then take those themes and present them to the larger community digitally. I don't know if it would be a good first step without any background, any education. Teacher in me, I really feel like step number 1 is education, reminding everybody what percent for art is. I don't know if you wrote in your document, you sent the document,
Yes,
right?
Beth.
With your
Yeah.
ideas.
Oh, yeah.
I don't know if you admit, I don't know, somebody talked, maybe it was Bob the last time. Sorry, I'm just like, I can't remember anything anymore. I'm old now. Somebody mentioned all the different historical ties, out
Yeah.
there. So I don't know, it's just good to let the community, just to get the juices flowing, let them respond and then,
Yeah.
and we're community too, we can chime in too.
Yeah.
That,
I think some combination that doesn't education session followed by a flash vote and does it fairly quickly,
sure.
would be a good idea. But I think in an education session, we would want to float some themes, like Beth has started and we can all add to, so that we getting people thinking. I am a little wary of how dampened down public input has become and civic engagement has become in the community. And I'm wondering how we can stage a session that would actually, get diverse input. Maybe we do something that's an online session. Maybe through the neighborhood association list, which is a fairly extensive list, we invite people to a Zoom session, something like that.
Yeah, what do you mean by dampen down?
Well, I don't think most public meetings are getting people. Civic engagement is way down and
Okay. Yeah.
So being more creative about how we engage.
well, that's what I think we need to do. I mean, that's why the flash vote is great because they're like 600
Yeah, yeah.
people on it, which is really impressive.
Did you talk to Monty about the format and council? Maybe it's really, is it a yes, no vote? I don't know if it's
Oh,
not.
You
No.
can add
You can add all kinds of
comments and
comments.
You can, and sometimes you create these kind of word or situations where everybody submits a word that
Mm.
best describes what they're
Yeah.
thinking. So there are different models for
Yeah.
what he can follow.
Okay, but it's not like a
it's not too
6
static.
question survey. It's not,
It's pretty flexible.
Is it?
I think
Okay.
we can.
Fairly
I-
thorough.
It's engaging, it's quick. and it's-
Yeah.
It's
Okay.
really
very
nice
quick,
tool.
but
Yeah.
It is a good tool.
Although he did say if we didn't end up using it, that, there are other survey tools
Mhm.
we could use.
Right.
But I
And-
just thought we have it and
We have it, people are doing it.
people do it.
Yeah.
I'd love to do it for something fun. Not that other stuff isn't fun.
What, do we know the distribution number for the City of Portsmouth newsletter?
That's a good
The
question.
newsletter is a good avenue.
Even for I mean, maybe it's along with some of these things for
Yes,
awareness.
definitely, we would want to do that, I think.
You could even announce the flash vote in the newsletter.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yes,
And actually, you know, I hate to say, but social media like Facebook and.
Yeah.
And.
We have,
Sure.
You
we
know,
have
this Portsmouth pages.
in the city.
Instagram, Facebook
read them.
and LinkedIn we have social media that Monty controls.
Yeah.
One of the things that I would caution, one of the reasons that the council asked to look at flash vote as an option is that we were really having difficulties getting good feedback that was not biased. So what happens frequently in city meetings or in processes where we choose like a design or a plan is that we get input from only a certain group of individuals, or we get input from individuals that are really interested in a current, like a project. Alyssa has direct experience with this. We had a recreation study and you get the people who are interested in recreation. You don't necessarily get the people who would be interested in recreation, but just don't know
No
about
matter how
it.
broadly you define recreation.
Yes, exactly.
It's people who walk.
Yeah.
But they don't know that that's what they're.
Right. And so there,
Yeah.
Yeah.
the real challenges around the survey
Yeah,
data
yeah.
we've received in the past, because it's just, it's not really representative of the entire community. And so that was the hope around flash vote. But I will also say, while it is enough of a sample that it's considered relevant data, it's still also self-selecting. So
Of
people who
course.
sign up for
Yeah.
flash vote are obviously more engaged, but at least it's
Yeah.
a much larger
Yeah.
sample.
Can people sign up on a rolling basis?
Yes, you can continually sign up. We're always signing up individuals. I think we might be up to 800 by now.
Wow.
So we're in a little bit better place, but at the same time, there are limits to the usage of that. And it's very difficult to drive people to meetings. You know, even we had a parking study meeting a week ago and you'd think that we would have had a huge number of people. We had 6. We had 4 that were not city councilors
Right.
or,
For members
yes.
of the public.
That was a meeting on parking principles, which we actually developed like in 2012, and the analogous meeting in 2012 would have had 100 people.
Hmm.
So
Hmm.
we got to warm people up to this, you know, and I guess we also have to make sure that if we do get 6 people, we don't feel obligated to necessarily, you know, use directly what we get, that we have to get reasonable. Reasonable
I
group.
think it's also important for us to define what our goals are for the community engagement. What do we think is important? It's one thing to come up with some themes and then ask people what they think about that, but I don't have an answer. I don't know what we want from the public other than
I think if you think of the many, somebody was talking a little bit ago, the many people who use Pierce Island.
Yeah.
I think we want the users to want to own.
right. We want to create engagement
want
and ownership
to-
and all of
to
those
be
things.
excited about it and to
but-
think about more than literal emotions that go along with their experience of Pierce Island. I mean, I think we want to have people talk about themes, but also their experiences, their feelings, you know, all of
And
that.
are we doing that so that we can then bake that into what we're asking the artists, that we're reflecting that in what we're putting in the articles?
Definitely.
Okay,
Yeah.
it's not just about themes, because that seems a little superficial, but we can use this to create sort of a profile of the community desired, so that the artist has that to base their.
Well, and that,
The words and emotions that came up could
Yeah,
be
yeah,
included.
Great.
yeah,
But to your point, I mean, how do we get to the schools? All ages, not just the little ones who play on a playground, but like high school kids too, you know? How do we engage with them and get their input? This is their sculpture, you know? And they're in a place where they hang out,
Is it possible?
or their work of art.
Mhm.
Is it possible to use some signs there? You know, because again, we're talking about the people who
Yes.
use it. So if we could sign it,
Yes.
then people would be like, oh, that's interesting. You get a QR code with it. So because everybody's got their phone with them. So again, that will give them a
Come to
little
our
bit more.
survey, come to our
Exactly.
Sign up
survey.
for flash vote.
Yeah,
Sign up for flash vote, you know, you can, but with things like that, because those are the people who are actually there, who theoretically are going to care the most
yeah.
and be the most engaged.
Except of course, no one's using the swimming pool right now.
Well,
Well,
the truth,
that time of
the
year.
season of,
Right,
the
that's the
season's
time
tough
of
for us,
year.
yes.
Maybe we can make posters and put them in public places, you know?
Yeah.
That's what we did for the
School system.
Fleet Street
Yeah,
redesign is we posted a
site-based.
QR code and people
Yeah.
scan the QR code and provided input.
Yeah, it's great.
Yeah.
I mean, as much as we would like to do this, December is a really bad time to do it. So we probably do need to wait until the new year at least, but that gives us a little time to plan this. I think we would not get much engagement
Yeah.
at this time of the year, but that gives us some time. These are all good ideas that I think, you know, we've got down. I think we're gonna need to do all of them to be able to
Mhm.
get something. Beth, I know you took time to do the themes. Do you want to talk to them? at all?
So I walk out there almost every day, all around, year round. I go out to the end of Fort Tree Island and then I do the larger loop if I have more time.
Do you have a dog?
No,
No?
no, I
Very
just like
good.
to walk. But obviously the money is coming from the wastewater treatment plant. So I was thinking water, and obviously it's an island, so it's water's all around us. And originally I was thinking we were going to do something like an art walk. So we were going to use the funds for many different locations of art, but still a theme could still work, you know, water as it supports local livelihoods, right? So the fishing community, water as it supports recreation. We have the kayak racks that are up and we have the boat ramp. Water makes plants and flowers grow. You know, maybe, and I was thinking over near the playground, it could be an educational component about pollinators and in a section where they didn't have to mow because we could have milkweeds planted or something. You know, water sustains. And that was where the water fountain idea was. You know, we already have 2 existing water fountains with dog bowls, but those could be beautiful pieces of art.
Mhm.
Or it could, elements of it, and I'm not sure how this would work, could be in that area that you guys found, which I think is a great location. And then because I am thinking of those love locks, and this, I think this is really separate, but you know, water, I was thinking, you know, some sort of, you know, wave sculpture that could have locks attached to it or use the existing ones. You know, we'd have to have something near the parking lot where it had a good view over to the bridges. But I think that's a little too specific, but water was a theme I thought of.
And so picking up on what Alyssa said, so you picked up some narrative themes. Nancy referred to like potentially historical themes. And then there are also the sort of emotional feeling, more abstract themes. So I think some ways to get people thinking along all of those lines to kind of pull some of that together would be interesting.
I really like, I mean, well, all right, I don't think, forget that. I like in principle, I like the idea of a trail that takes you around. But it strikes me as so ambitious and so much, so expensive and so multi-featured that, you know, will never, you know, it just is long time coming.
You know, well, and then this was, I couldn't go on the
Yeah.
walk, so I was thinking, how can I add value? You know, sort of.
Yeah,
sense
I mean, I
something.
think it's a really
but
good idea.
Actually, I think the theme could be applied
It
to
could
that
be.
one area anyway.
Right.
And maybe at some point in the future, I mean, there's actually existing art out there quite a bit. So that's, a trail could be created anyway.
Right, connecting the different pieces.
You know, take the 1 mile loop and it's this, take the
Yeah.
full loop and it's this.
It reminds me of something Peter said while we were there in answer to questions that we had about accessibility, which was, we don't have it now, but for many years we had a Pierce Island committee, which had many members. And they wanted to keep it as wild and natural as possible. And that's really struck me, Peter's point on that,
Yeah.
because I wondered too, in walking the trails, why are some of them like this wide? And it's because they really wanted to just not disturb the habitat, especially as you go into the woods area and the trail area. So I think that also can work into a theme, but it's something to keep in mind to honor what the original committee was interested in.
I was just gonna point out the history of this island is also fascinating.
Mhm.
There's a whole history of Pierce Island from the city has done.
Mhm.
And it's fascinating to look back that, you know, the first colonial settler was 1631 and was the Fernald Dr. Fernald. And they still fish right there next to Pierce Island. So it's fascinating that family lived right there for years and years and still is in the neighborhood.
Mhm.
So, I think it's important that this committee goes back and looks at this too, very carefully.
Yeah, it's on the website. Yeah.
Yeah.
So I think what I'm taking from this is one of the things we need to do, and maybe it's something that a couple people want to take on as a task, is scope out what a educational presentation would be like. I'm thinking Zoom makes a lot of sense to try to get the most people possible. That also allows us to record it and people to watch the recording and then be able to add their voice in via survey or other means. So that we will be ready in January then to offer once or twice. We can do it at a couple different times, as well as then setting up the flash vote. Is that something somebody was particularly interested in scoping out?
I would do that with someone.
I'll do it with you.
Okay, great.
Okay, that's good.
Once you have the meat of it,
Pardon?
I love working on PowerPoint, so
Great.
I could join in if you
Oh,
want to do the
that's
research.
wonderful.
That's
But
great.
I was
Beth.
thinking maybe I could
PowerPoint is
work on
great.
an engagement
Yeah.
plan,
That would be great.
like flash vote is one
All
of
the
them.
things
Just
we've
pull-
talked
Yeah,
about,
I'll
just-
just weave that into a one pager.
Yeah, and sort of an order of how these things might go.
Yeah.
Yeah,
I'll take that on and
yeah,
share it.
that's good, great.
Do we have a timeline that we're aiming for?
Oh, I wanted to be more ambitious, but I think, if you'll see in the thing I mocked up for an RFP, it's about 6 months. Remember, Ernie told us that. So if we were to do this in January and get an RFP out in February, summer would be a time when we would have selected someone. About 6 months.
Another question, I guess, if we're talking about public engagement now on this very broad level, which it's important and it's great that we have that reflect through, but people, I find in my work that if there isn't something imminent that is going to affect them or that they are really can tangibly react to, it's very hard to get broad
It is.
thematic engagement. And so do we also anticipate having public input on the finalists, which I can't remember whether it was the case or not but do we?
We offered it, but nobody engaged. Like we put it out on a website
Yeah.
and we put copies of all the presentations here and at the library.
Yeah.
And people didn't
Okay.
comment.
All right. I thought that would maybe be more likely to be like, hey, this thing could happen. And when people see change, what is it? Then they usually get more
Yeah,
activated.
that's an interesting possibility. And Nancy, why do you think that was? Do you have any?
I don't think people know what public art is. Maybe now that we have some
Good
big
examples.
example, like we did at the garage, and we keep pounding that home, maybe people will understand.
Yeah.
And maybe by the time we're ready for this, the Endeavor sculpture will be up, so
Yeah.
we'll have like,
Mm.
because I just, you know, we don't really have, and the African burying ground is so specific. I don't think people think of it as public art. So I think it's just, they don't know what it is,
Yeah.
but that's just a guess.
It's an interesting, CJ Jen did 2 or 3, public engagement activities. And people did come, but they were small groups. I mean, I think the Zoom sessions maybe were 12, 15. And that committee really beat the bushes to try to get people there, so.
Is there a way that, because, and again, it's not, I don't know how far, and I haven't looked at our Google Doc yet much, so I've looked at it and said, oh my gosh, I think there's one here. But is there some way, once that thing is more fleshed out, and we feel like is in a comfortable position, to be able to engage like the paper to say, you know what, have you ever noticed how much there is? Because it would get picked up on Seacoast Online and people might be able to react to that. So again, trying to get the whole education is like, what are we doing here?
Yeah.
We might get more people interested because that Google Doc is really interesting. And I think people will be shocked at how much public art there is
I think
and that they see it every day, but they don't know
I
that.
think if we write a press release, they'll print it. I mean,
Yeah.
we can do
Okay.
that.
Yeah, they'll print it twice.
You can't even-
I find that the most effective way to get something in the paper is to write an op-ed. So if you write an op-ed about it, that
Well,
just
would
gets
be a
more
nice
attention.
Piece of the engagement.
Engagement plan.
Yeah.
Yeah, to go along with it. I think that's a good idea.
The committee can do that.
And the op-ed can identify, we've identified over 50 pieces of public art and there's gonna be another one.
Yeah, I think that pulling in neighborhood committees and somehow getting to the schools, and I don't know what that means. I don't know what that means.
I have
Well,
a
if
friend
we
in the
have
school
Zoom,
system.
we
I
can
can,
certainly put the invitations to that in schools.
know,
I mean, high school
sometimes-
people certainly.
Yeah,
There's a weekly.
when we did
Yeah.
transportation plans and others with the schools, high school social studies teachers, because the social studies department sort of sees everybody and they public development is part of their activity and they really embraced it. Kids did their own focus groups around things, so that might be an avenue.
High school.
I
kids
think
are-
having high school kids involved with it would be great.
I'd love that.
They should have good visions.
The art teachers also really engaged. Anna, not.
Anna
She's-
did a lot with us on the
Yeah.
African burying
Oh,
ground
right,
and
those tiles.
yeah, and is very connected to very, very connected to what kids will respond to. Um, 2 more things I think I'd love to hear people's feelings about related to this. $150,000. In the public art guidelines, we always said to set aside 10% for long-term maintenance that would stay in the fund. I think we have the option to do that, or we have the option to think about using some of the dollars that will come to us from the annual appropriation for maintenance. Any thoughts about that? I don't want to shirk on maintenance because we always know it's a.
So are you saying that we, so if with our 25,000, we would say, great, we're going to, target 10,000 of that for maintenance of projects?
Yeah.
That makes sense because that way, I mean, it frees up the money right now when we could use it, and maintenance theoretically is going to
It's
come
gonna-
down the line.
Right. But we'd have to have the discipline to not spend that 25,000.
Don't do it.
That would be.
Fund that's been set aside from previous projects that exist somewhere, like the parking garage or something like that.
There
Do
is
they
some
have their own?
maintenance.
Anytime there's, even if it's, I'm out of my league here, but anytime something gets put in place, there has to be a maintenance fund
Yeah.
for it. It can't, like,
From public art. or something.
Right. In other words, so someone can say, I'm gonna donate this piece of public art to you, like, great. Where are the maintenance dollars that go with it
And they're.
to
tied
accept the
directly to
donation,
that.
right?
They're not in
Because,
one big pot somewhere.
yeah,
Because we're
because,
talking about not tying and just keeping it from our big pot.
Yeah.
And so that would be different than what's
Yeah.
been done in the past.
So for example, with the Bearing Ground, we put aside $40,000 for, and that because it was before the Public Art Trust, it was in the Bearing Ground Trust, but when the tiles need to be replaced, when the statues need to be refinished, that kind of.
Right.
Because it is outdoors, and outdoors on that location is gonna take a beating.
Hmm.
Oh, yeah, we saw how windy it can get.
Yeah.
Well, we didn't see how windy. it
So
could get.
that's one, that would preserve the 150.
I guess I just see we decide that now, but does the committee know that going forward? And in 10 years, when somebody says, oh, there was no maintenance put aside for this project, how are we gonna fund that? We've spent all the money in the pot. Is that creating a long-term issue if we don't tie it the way it has been?
It creates a question for me, which is, looking at the Public Art Trust Fund and what might be in it right now, and where other dollars are that might be related so that we can get something organized for the reason that you're talking about. And then my one other point, because I know we're running short on time, as we were walking out there, something Nancy and I were chatting about, typically when public art things are done, a committee related to the site is set up to be the review and selection committee. And in thinking about how our committee is new, and this is our first project, so it would be really good for all of us, I think, to go through it. That for this project, we serve as the review and selection committee, but we add some people to the committee for the review and selection process who are connected to the site. So, someone who's, let's say we pick a theme related to water, and we want someone, maybe we bring a hydrologist onto the committee. We certainly want someone from Public Works on a committee like this. I asked the city clerk, I haven't gotten it yet, for the names of people who previously served on the Pierce Island Committee. So people who were involved in, doing the master plan, someone from that group. So we become a little bit large for a review and selection committee, but I think it would be great process for all of us to participate in. And Alyssa, it allows us to maybe diversify a little. Does that feel right to people?
Yes.
Okay. I think that will help us, and we're not so large that it's unwieldy.
I like it.
Good. And then I started, which I passed out to you, not for discussion tonight, but more like a note-taking sheet for all of us, just an RFP outline that, already we can see some of the things that we would want to change. I took most of the sections largely from the one that was for Endeavor, but then put in some things that are specific to us and embedded some questions. But it would be great for, as you think of things, to kind of use this as a place where we'll put our notes and ideas. So when we come to talk about the RFP soon, we'll all be giving it some thought. Mara, did you have a question?
No.
Okay.
Kate, you mentioned the website that had the history. Is that something we can put in the minutes?
Yes.
Yeah.
Want me to send it to you? Thanks.
Oh, and then the one last thing there is, our December is so difficult, but I hate to lose this momentum that we kind of have around this project. So obviously we're not going to meet the Christmas week, or the week after Christmas, but what do you think about a December 20 meeting, which is a week before we would normally meet? It's that Wednesday.
Not the solstice.
Is that the
I think
solstice? Wow.
Probably the 21st, isn't it?
Well,
First.
yeah, but it's whatever it is this year. I mean, I'm just looking to see what it is this year.
I can make that work.
I can do it.
Can you do it? Okay,
I can Zoom.
okay.
I'll be driving through Boston that
Uh-huh.
day, so we'll see. if I
Heading,
can-
heading south?
No, coming back from the South Shore.
When do you go to Florida?
Oh, I'm just gonna be coming back. I'm bringing my mother up here for the holidays.
Oh, nice.
Getting her on the 19th, bringing her up here on the 20th. It's our little tradition.
If enough of us can meet, I think it would be useful. Beth,
Sending it
do you think
out to you.
it's possible that you might have the
It's
engagement?
the
meeting?
Thursday, December 21st.
Oh, yeah, sure.
Okay, so we could. at
I'll send it out
least-
before, so
Yeah, we could at least
Thursday.
review the
Yeah,
engagement.
okay.
plan, So we're
We can
kind
do
of-
it.
And Mara and Nancy, anything you could do to,
We can do
what
that
that
before the
education session would be like?
Pardon?
We can get together.
Before the 20th.
Yeah,
So we're
Yeah,
saying that
sure.
5:15 on the
5:15 on the 20th. You will, Sean will have to check the
Yep.
room.
I might be a little late, just so you know. I have a 4 o'clock event that day.
I think that's good, and that if we can be pretty well prepped before January, then we can kind of move forward and get this underway.
I'm taking the week off after Christmas, so if we had the bulk of the content for that educational, I could whip it up. So don't
Yeah.
try to pretty it up.
We're
I'll
on
do
it.
that.
Don't waste your. That's great.
So you don't lose a month. Get
So we
things
don't lose
going
a whole
and things are
month.
percolating over the holidays and then
I know,
Ready to
this
go.
is the fun part.
Right, right, and hopefully, Jen, if you have it, you'll have a chance to go out and see the site that we described.
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah, get a sense of that. I think we'll want some good photos of it too. Actually, Beth, that might be, some good
Want some
photos
pictures?
of the
I can
site.
take some.
Cause I think
Yeah.
we're gonna need to send photos with the RFP.
Oh, absolutely.
So that,
I'll be down there this week. I'll take some early morning shots.
Do a video.
or a video. even. Yeah, link to a video.
And one other thing, I meant to have it ready for this meeting, but I ended up traveling a lot for work this month. But Alyssa and I met and went through draft content for
Great.
consideration for the website and the landing page. So I'm just in the process of making all the changes that you recommended and we discussed, and then I'll get that out. So we can make
Because
decisions.
that'll be great for the RFP. So we'll
Yeah.
have our website and we'll have the guidelines on there. We'll have other links. So
Yeah.
The RFP
As
can
we
be
get
pretty
into the
succinct.
engagement process, it would be great
It'll
to
be good
have
to
that.
have
Sure.
that. Yeah,
Yeah.
and we can do it in phases, like the way we've talked about it is at least do this now.
Right.
And then
Yeah.
we can add in other
Yeah.
pieces, but we took a lot of the information that was provided by the city council, describing it. It's a little dated, I think, now that we're in place, so I think we'll want to make some adjustments, but we've laid it out where you could say, okay, we'll need to change this or discuss this, and so we're working on that too.
Okay,
wow.
Good
So,
meeting.
good
Yeah.
job.
Hey,
Yeah,
Progress.
progress.
Lean and mean.
And women. Right, Sean?
Good serve.
We need to officially. Close it?
Yeah. Oh,
Probably.
we'll say we've officially adjourned at 6:28.